Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar. Happy to have you all here for what's going to be a really meaningful conversation with our guest speaker, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I'll remind everyone to please mute yourselves. Looks like everyone has done that. And if you need closed captioning, feel free to use the show captions button at the bottom of your screen. We are recording, so if you would like to watch the video again, or if you know someone who would enjoy seeing it, the link will be available tomorrow. One more announcement, and that is that our family series for family caregivers of someone with Alzheimer's disease or another dementia is continuing this afternoon, not too long after the webinar. From 4 to 5:30, we will be doing part 2 of the family series. We'll be talking about why is this person acting this way? Why is my loved one acting like this? And we'll have a conversation about behavior and communication and give some thoughts on how to handle that for ourselves as caregivers and for those who we love. So if you're registered and ready to attend, that's great. Have not registered, you can still join us. It's at our Clinical Research Center on Shawnee Mission Parkway, 4350 Shawnee Mission Parkway in Fairway, Kansas, on the north side of Shawnee Mission Parkway, right inside the front entrance of the CRC, and we'd be delighted to have you. So look forward to seeing some of you in person in a couple of hours. But before then, I am delighted to introduce you to our guest speaker today, Mr. Edward J. Newsome. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then he's going to tell you all the great stuff about him and his son and his writing and his experiences. But I'll brag on him a little bit first. I met Mr. Newsome on March 21st, which is World Down Syndrome Day. And there was a really fun drive-through parade activity at Down Syndrome Innovations. You could drive through, and then those of us who were representing or standing as the cars passed, waving and passing out candy and saying hello to folks. And when Mr. Newsome passed by, of course, I stopped to chat him up, and I held up the parade, I admit it, because I was just so fascinated to hear from him. And I think your son, Mr. Newsome, was in the car with you that day, and just heard about their story. And we got ourselves into a great conversation. And I said, I think I would love to have you on our weekly webinar sometime, and sometime has now come. So let me tell you a little bit more about Mr. Newsome. He is a caregiver for his adult son, Edward II, who has Down syndrome. Mr. Newsome has served on the National Down Syndrome Congress Board, the Missouri Planning Council for Developmental Disabilities, and the Jackson County Board of Services for Developmental Disabilities. For 2 years, he was president of the Kansas City Board of Education. And along with his siblings, Mr. Newsome comes from a big, wonderful family. They have written a book called A Man Called Mama about their beloved father. And I have read the book. My background is blurred, so you probably can't see that very well. Anyway, it is fascinating and just really proves what a loving, committed family they are to take care of each other. A couple more things. Mr. Newsome is married to Cynthia Newsome, formerly of KSHB Channel 4 news anchor. Also has a daughter named Kimberly. His favorite pastimes are playing dominoes and doing puzzles, and we all know from the brain booster that those are 2 great things to do to keep the wheels turning in your brain. And he is currently writing a book for Edward II about their lives together and how they are managing Down syndrome and the tremendous impact that fathers have on their children by getting an early start in identifying and establishing support in the life of someone with Down syndrome. So if you're wondering why this topic, why now, besides all those things I just said, here at the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, we are looking at brain health to include those who have Down syndrome and other intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so we've got research projects and all kinds of great information in support of those things. And we are certainly very happy to have Mr. Newsome with us today. So, Mr. Newsome, welcome. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the audience hearing more about you. I feel like I know all your business now that I have read your book. And I want everybody else to be able to hear those good stories. So if you would start us off by telling us what you would like to about yourself and about Edward II and about your caregiving experience together.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. You know, just continue all this good stuff about me. I'm kind of liking it. Yeah, yeah. But listen, thank you very much for having me on. It was a real delight to meet you, I think back in March, and we really had not communicated very much since then. I was kind of thinking that you had kind of forgot about me, but all of a sudden I get a call from you, and so here we are.
Yes.
Again, thank you very much for having me on, and you've given a pretty thorough description of who I am, and I just want to. My wife Cynthia, she's dealing with a second bout of breast cancer. And she actually works for Channel 41, not Channel 4. Okay, she works for Channel 41. And she started a girls' organization 26 years ago. It's called Awesome Ambitions. And she's having a annual get together this Saturday. So I'm involved with that and have always been involved with that. As if I don't have enough to do, I've been involved. We've been married for 21 years, and I've been involved with the organization for 21 years. But in the meantime, I found a couple of things to do, and I've been a missionary to Ethiopia since 2014. I've traveled to Ethiopia 12 times up until COVID, and I've founded a children's project whereby we have found sponsors for 52 children in Ethiopia. But again, that's just some things that I've kind of done in my part-time. But in full-time, I'm in the real estate business. I have been full-time since, well, a long time. And my son, Edward, was born 44 years. As a matter of fact, his late mom, today is the 24th anniversary of her death. So we're going to be celebrating that today also. But wow, and I've had a really wonderful time with my son and the things that we've been able to do over the years. And one of the things that you mentioned, Kelly, was that I found great pleasure in being a father. He was my first child. My second child, Kimberly, was adopted at the age of 6 weeks old, and so I have two children. But when Edward was born, we did not know that he would have Down syndrome or any other condition. We were just expecting a normal birth, and it was a normal birth, whatever that means. And so we had no prior planning or preparation to be parents of a child with Down syndrome. And so we just kind of started from day one. But even before he was born, one of the things that I set out to do was introduce myself to him. A few months before he was born, I introduced myself to him as his father. I would sing to to the womb, and I'm not a good singer, so that's probably why he doesn't like my singing today. But I mean, I would tell stories and jokes, to the womb. And so, and by the time he was born on February 4th, 1979, he was very familiar with who his father was. He was very familiar with my voice and with my intonations in my behavior. And so, and I was not aware that would have an impact on him, because I had not studied much of our prenatal things, pre-birth kinds of things. But I think with my starting with him early like that made a world of difference. And so at that time, again, 44 plus years ago, there was not much information out about fathers and their raising of their children. Most information, there was a lot of information on the market, but most of it dealt with mothers, and their, giving birth, to the child and rearing the child and those kinds of things. But there was almost nothing at all as relates to the fathers. And during my time that I served on the National Board and other organizations, I found out that many fathers were in the dark, and they had, there were many challenges, as there probably are, with any other kind of family dynamics, especially if there are challenging times. But I found that many fathers cannot handle giving birth to a child with Down syndrome, well, really probably with other conditions, but I'm more familiar with with what was happening in the Down syndrome community. There were lots of divorces and, lots of breakups, just lots of challenges, lots of resorting to substance abuse. But so I've thought about this over the years, and I've always had the desire to write about something of this nature. And I had not done that until now, really. And so it came to me that I needed to really share my years of experience with new fathers and fathers who are maybe not so new. And so this book that I'm writing, it's about 75% done, and is already that portion of the book has already been submitted to my editor for review. So I'm waiting to get back some feedback from the editor as relates to the structure and things like that. But it's been fun. As a matter of fact, Kelly, I have started writing the book about Down syndrome. By the way, I don't have a name for it yet. So I'm still dealing with that. But I was writing that book, and my brother said to me, "Say, listen, guys, let's write a piece about our father." And my dad was an identical twin, and they called him Mama Newsome, and his brother was called Papa Newsome. So my brother Travis, who lives in Chicago, said, "Well, let's just write a piece on Daddy, and let's title it A Man Called Mama." So we want at least 500 words. 500 words, we'll put this together. But at that time, we really did not having a book in mind. But as we started writing, as I started writing, I got past 500 words, and I think I ended up with over 9,000 words, for my chapter. And the idea was that the 11 of us would each write a chapter about our dad, about a man called Mama. And then and so once we got started, we were having lots of fun with that. And my oldest brother, Robert, who passed away 5 years ago, I actually wrote his chapter posthumously because I had already done some writings and things about him and his life and, his coming up. So again, we had great fun with that. The book came out about a month ago, actually, and we've had 3 book signings already, and the book is doing very well. It's a fun book to read, and it's really about family unity, family challenges, family structure. It's about family loving one another. It's about faith. It's about forgiveness. All those things we have compiled in this 206-page book, and there I am. There we are. And I know I've kind of gone on and on here, on and on, Kelly. So you may have some questions specifically.
Well, sure. Yeah, I want to thank you. I want to put up on the screen some of the photos that you sent me, Mr. Newsome, because as I learned from reading your book and hearing your story, yours is a family that likes to have adventures. And so, folks, I'm going to put up on the screen some shots that Mr. Newsome sent me throughout the life of his life and Edward II. And I'd love to hear from you, Mr. Newsome, about about some of the places you've gone. And thank you to my fellow ADRC person for putting those pictures up. It looks like you all have had a lot of fun over the years, from wearing tuxedos to looks like visiting the pyramids in Egypt. And I will speak and say that I'm not sure in the world at large, in society, that we often think that people with Down syndrome should do these kinds of things. And so something I think it's really important is to know that people can live great quality lives and have wonderful adventures. So if you would maybe tell us a bit about some of those times you've had together.
Well, these are some cool pictures, and my son Edward was instrumental in me in helping me load these pictures up. But the far one right with the baby, that's one of his early baby pictures, probably just a few months old. And the one to the far left with that's him with his great grandmother just a few days before she passed away. And I don't know what year it was now, but you can see that he's probably about 5 or 6 years old. And the one in the tuxedo, that's his junior or senior prom. And he graduated from Purcell High School in 1997, same high school that I graduated from, and same high school that his mother graduated from. So, and the one with the raised hand, that's in Egypt, the pyramids of Egypt. We travel. I took him and my daughter to Egypt a few months after the mom died, my wife died, and I've taken him and them several places around the world, and we've been down inside the pyramids of Egypt and in other places. But he loved to travel because we think that, and we believe that traveling gives him exposure. It's educational. He's very well balanced. He's worked full time. He started a full-time job even before he finished high school. He worked at the Goodwill Industries for 22 years. Now he worked at McDonald's. Now he is employed at Panera Bread at 103rd and State Line Road in Kansas City, Missouri.
My goodness. So it sounds like Edward II has quite the resume, just like his dad and his uncles and aunts and his grandfather and all of you wonderful Newsome family. Can we talk a bit, Mr. Newsome, about your and Edward II's experience in research? Have you participated in research studies at KU or anywhere else? And what's been your experience with that like?
No, actually, we have not participated in research. Most of the information that I know about Down syndrome, about him, about his condition, is things that I research. Then I've exposed myself to reading and going to conferences and things of this nature. But we have not been involved in a research study ourselves about what his condition is and what it leads to. At this point in time, we have not been.
Okay. Is that, and I don't want to put you on the spot at all, but I'll just say for you and for the benefit of everyone who's participating today, the KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center certainly has some really progressive and forward-thinking research projects happening right now for all kinds of diagnoses, including Down syndrome. We're looking at things like physical activity and
Right.
Down syndrome and overall brain health. Just for the benefit of those who are watching, I want to make sure everybody knows that when someone has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, the likelihood of their also having Alzheimer's disease is pretty significant. And so one of the things that we suggest at the KU ADRC is that people and their families participate in some baseline studies to find out what's happening now, and then over time, participate in research so that we can help that individual and society at large know more about how things will progress over a lifetime. So for you and Edward II, Mr. Newsome, and for anybody who's watching that might be curious about that, we encourage you to talk to us about some of those projects, and we are especially interested in providing support support to individuals and families, and certainly our larger communities. So, Mr. Newsome, I want to ask, if you were to speak with a family who today found out that their child was going to have Down syndrome, what advice might you offer them?
I will advise them to have the baby, grow with the baby, and love the child, love him, love her. Start from day one, start from the beginning. And what one may say is that, well, I have no training, I have no knowledge, no preparation. Neither did I, but I took it upon myself, and I would encourage fathers, just take it one day at a time, learn everything that you can about your baby, and know that there will be some days of challenge, but there will be some great days. But you really have to immerse yourself or oneself into the life of the child. Sure, it's there are times that one will be challenged, but the beauty of really showing love and showing support, it really comes back to you in so many different ways. And I happen to be one who believes that God does not just give special people just to anybody, and those whom He gives special children, families to, He also equips you with everything that you need. Now, you might ask me, well, how was I equipped? Well, in my book, as I write about every facet, every ounce, every facet of my life that I experienced from as far back as I can remember, there were ways that I feel that I was being prepared to be the father of a child with Down syndrome. Even when I was growing up at 17 and left home at the age of 17, when I went to the military at 21, when I fought as a combat paratrooper in Vietnam, every aspect of my life, I believe, was preparing me to be the father of a child with Down syndrome.
Mm.
And I love being the father.
Oh, how wonderful. What a wonderful tribute. We've got a few minutes left in our time together. I want to make sure that anybody who's watching with us that might have a question or a comment for you, Mr. Newsome, will have the opportunity to do that. So if anybody's out there who has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up, or to use the chat feature to make your comment or question. And I do want to say, I'm not going to call anybody out necessarily, but I'm very pleased to see several names that I recognize and some of my colleagues here at the ADRC who are working on our research projects. And so if any of you have any insight you'd like to share with the group, you're welcome to do that. We do, for your purpose, Mr. Newsome, and for anybody else that's watching, we do have a program called Being Proactive, which is specifically designed for folks with a Down syndrome diagnosis. We have a track for family caregivers, and we have a track for healthcare professionals. And we've got information about that on our website. And thank you, Dr. Toomey, for reminding us that our colleague Amy Yeager is presenting tonight at Down Syndrome Innovations at their office in Mission, Kansas, just south of Johnson Drive. Some ideas about being proactive from that class that we have on what it looks like to age, as we are all doing, but to age when you also have the diagnosis of Down syndrome. And thank you, Dr. Toomey, for putting the link to register for that in the chat. I have certainly participated in Amy's program on being proactive and know that it's full of lots of great resources. So if you're in the area of Mission today and can get to that, that'll be this evening, and I think you'll find it quite helpful. And you can follow our education calendar for more details about upcoming Being Proactive events. If you happen to live anywhere near Hays, Kansas, we are doing Being Proactive in Hays, Kansas, which is over on the western side of the state, on October 2nd, I believe. That's a Monday afternoon at the Hayes Public Library from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and certainly are always available for questions and comments regarding aging and Down syndrome. So get in touch with us if that is something that you have some interest in. All right. Any other questions or thoughts for Mr. Newsome? I'm excited about your book. 75% of the way there, you're almost there. I will be first in line to get it when it's ready, and I want it to be autographed, just like you kindly autographed A Man Called Mama for me. And not only do I have Mr. Edward J. Newsome's autograph in my book, I have autographs from his siblings and a lovely message from them about the good work that we are doing at KU. So I will spread the credit to all of my colleagues. I'm very happy to be part of a team that is so diligently working on figuring out how to promote good brain health. So stay tuned. I will remind you all to take a look at the slide that's up on the screen. If you do want to contact us for any reason, you can visit the websites that are listed there. I think many of you are subscribed to our My Alliance newsletter. If not, go to joinmyalliance.com and sign up, and you'll get our newsletter every Monday morning at 7 o'clock. And you'll find out the latest and greatest about our research projects, about our educational programs, and more. Everybody look at the chat. There's another research opportunity for caregivers of adults with Down syndrome. So make sure you take that link down if that is something that you are interested in. And know that this is recorded, so it'll be up on our YouTube channel by sometime tomorrow, I believe. I will let you know that next week's topic, we are going to have Dr. Kristen Feeback, who is the director of an organization called ComCare. And ComCare is the agency that manages the new 988 phone number, similar to 911, but for behavioral and mental health crises. So Dr. Feeback is the director of that organization, and she's going to come and share with us some information about how that 988 number is so helpful when you or someone you love is having a hard time, need to talk to someone. You can call 988 just like you can call 911. And she's already said that when you call this 988 number, there's not voicemail, there's not a busy signal, you're not on hold. Someone is there to answer 24 hours a day. And we know that that can be so meaningful. People need to be able to have resources and have help. And so that is a service that is available. Kristen is also a caregiver for her father with Alzheimer's disease, and will likely share some information about that journey. And she is a geriatric expert on lots of things to do with older adults. So I'm really excited to have her, almost as excited as I was to have Mr. Newsome here today. I got to go to Mr. Newsome's house and get my book signed and meet him in person. So that is absolutely precious to me. And I thank you again, Mr. Newsome, so much for sharing your story. Please thank Edward II for us today for being willing to have his story in the spotlight, and the fun pictures that you showed. And your love and dedication are so apparent in your conversation today and in your book about your father. And it sounds like your family is quite lucky to have you. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on. I enjoyed being with you, and hopefully that I was able to share some information with somebody that would be of help to all of us.
Absolutely. And there's lots of thank yous in the chat, Mr. Newsome, so make sure you see those.
Yeah, I see those. Thank you.
Please do let us know the moment please let me know when the title of the book is ready, because I'm nosy and I want to know. And also whenever it's available to purchase, we'd love to know, because I'm one who thinks the more resources, the better. And there are so many families who can benefit from this. And another thing I didn't ask you to touch on, but I think I have like 1 minute left. One reason I was especially interested in talking with you, Mr. Newsome, is because we know that racial disparities in brain health are real. And we know that members of racial minority groups often have less access to information. And so when I met you and Edward II and learned about your relationship, I thought, oh, this is just going to be great, because it's so important to see somebody who looks like you. So just quickly, or however long you want to take, any thoughts about that perspective about being a Black father caring for a Black son with Down syndrome?
Well, actually, always been kind of in a minority of things, that I do, serving on the national boards and local boards. But my experience with Edward has been really has nothing at all to do with a lack of exposure because of race. We've always had great treatments from all our doctors and nurses and people with whom we've been associated, and we travel, and so we've never had any, any kind of issues with race. And I know there are issues there, and but certainly we would like, Evan and I would like to avail him to to the research, to this to the information that you have, and we can always learn more about how we can provide better services, not just for him, but for others, throughout the world and throughout the nation. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for following up with me, and thank you for allowing me to come on today.
Excellent. Thank you again. And Amy.